Hello, I'm Brad Williams with College Options, and I want to put together this video for you so that we can talk about financial aid. And whenever I make a presentation about financial aid, I want to tell families, parents, students, I understand that the whole process of financial aid can be confusing, mysterious, intimidating, complicated, put whatever words you want on it. I get that. And so that being said, my number one goal for any time I do a presentation like this is to try and take some of the mystery, or hopefully a lot of the mystery, out of the financial aid process for you. So I'm hopeful that I'm able to do that through this video. I hope it's helpful for you as you consider financial aid options. I am going to share my screen now and bring up a presentation that I have put together for us to take a look at. First of all, let me say again, my name is Brad Williams. It's shown here. Here's my email address, bwilliams@collegeoptions.org. You can reach out to me at any time, and I'm more than happy to help. You have questions, concerns, things don't seem to be coming together as you hope they would. You need help putting a FAFSA together or filing a FAFSA. I'm happy to do that with you. bwilliams@collegeoptions.org. Here's my phone number, 768-5103. That rings right to my desk right here, 530 area code. Also, I want you to be aware that College Options is on social media. We're on two platforms. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and we are at College Options Inc. So you can follow us if you would like. Also, be aware of our website, which is collegeoptions.org. Really has a lot of great information there. And I've got a financial aid link there that's got a ton of financial aid information on that page. Not the least of which is this presentation that I'm doing right now. So if you go to the College Options website, click on the financial aid tab, scroll down to financial aid award PowerPoint presentation, College Options. You'll see this presentation, you'll see this video, and you'll see some other documents that are related to financial aid that might be helpful to you. So when we talk about financial aid, we're talking about the FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A, the free application for federal student aid. I always emphasize the first F, which is free. You should never pay anyone to have any help with your FAFSA. You get folks probably at your high school. You've got folks here at College Options like myself who are more than happy to be able to help you to fill that out. And when you fill out a FAFSA, you're going to be filling out information about the student, and in most cases also about the parents. You're going to be filling out demographic information and also financial information. Excuse me. And when you fill out that FAFSA and you hit submit on that FAFSA, your information is going to go to multiple places all at the same time, simultaneously. And they're represented here by these three picnic baskets on this little graphic that is on the screen. So first of all, your information is going to go to the federal government. The federal government is going to look at your financial situation to determine if your student is eligible for free financial aid from the federal government, which is called the Pell Grant, which is free money. They're also going to look to determine if your student is eligible for federal student loans. And as I tell families all the time, I don't know where you are on the continuum of student loans are okay, you know, they're fine, or over here on the other end of that continuum, student loans are the worst thing ever created in the history of mankind. That's a family decision, that's a personal decision. But I will say this, that if you as a student find yourself in need of loans, federal student loans are the best. They've got the lowest interest rates, they've got the lowest origination fees, they've got the best repayment plans available. So again, we filled out our FAFSA, we hit submit, all that information goes to the federal government. It also goes to the state government, that's represented right here. Of course, in our case, that is the state of California. More specifically, it goes to the folks at the California Student Aid Commission, located in Rancho Cordova. They're looking at your financial information to determine if you're eligible for free California aid in the form of the Cal Grant or in the form of the California Middle Class Scholarship. And let me just say that the state of California, in my view, is the most generous state in the country when it comes to free money for financial aid purposes. All right, so again, we've hit submit on the FAFSA. It goes to all the information goes to the federal government, to the state government, and then it goes to every school that we've listed on our FAFSA. And when you first fill out a FAFSA, you can list up to 10 schools. That's usually plenty for most students, but for some students, you want to list more than 10. Well, the way to do that is file your FAFSA with those 10 schools listed, come back after it processes, give it a week or so, come back, go into your FAFSA, take some of those schools off, add your other schools in. You can just keep on doing that as much as you want, as long as you want, for as many schools as you want. The schools themselves, when they get your FAFSA information, they're looking at your financial situation to determine if you're eligible for free money from the school itself. We refer to this as institutional aid. Public schools have some of their own money to give out to students. Private schools have even more money to give out to students. Private schools are more expensive than public schools. Public schools are state subsidized, but private schools, while being more expensive, have more of their own money to give out. They have endowments, in some cases, large endowments. Harvard, for example, has over $40 billion in their endowment. Stanford has close to $30 billion in their endowment. So this money is coming from donors who have given it to the schools specifically with the intent that those schools will give that money out to students to help them be able to come and afford their private school. So you never know what you're going to get from private schools until you file a FAFSA and you get a financial aid award offer back from them. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the financial aid award offer. That's the whole reason we fill out a FAFSA, is so in the end game, if you will, of this whole process is to get a financial aid award offer, or more than one, from the schools that you're interested in. And those schools, it's going to be put together by the financial aid office from those schools. They're going to gather all of your FAFSA information and all the aid information from the federal government, from the state government, and they're going to put that together in a financial aid award offer for the student. And it starts out with a mathematical formula. And that formula is they take their cost of attendance. Every school has a different cost of attendance. And they subtract from their cost of attendance your expected family contribution. So let me define those terms a little bit for you. So cost of attendance is made up of 5 factors. And if I gave you a minute to think about it, you'd come up with them. It's not rocket science. It's tuition, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. Those 5 elements make up cost of attendance. And again, in putting together your financial aid award offer, the financial aid office folks will then subtract from their cost of attendance your expected family contribution, or EFC. EFC is a very, very, very complicated formula that's been developed by the federal government using information off of your FAFSA. They use 5 elements of information that come off your FAFSA: income, assets, number in the household going to college, and the age of the oldest parent. Those 5 factors are used in that very complicated formula, and not all of those 5 factors are equally weighted in that very complicated formula. The EFC is the government's attempt to say, this is what we believe that you as a family can afford to invest or afford to spend in your student in the next academic year going to schooling after high school. Many families across the United States believe that the government has overstated that number, overstated their ability to pay for college. And by the way, every family in the United States that fills out a FAFSA gets an expected family contribution value back. And if you find yourself feeling that way, all I can say is you would not be alone in feeling that way, that perhaps the federal government has suggested that the EFC is higher than you think it should be. So again, I'm going back to this financial aid award offer. The financial aid office takes their cost of attendance, subtracts your EFC, and what they get then is your financial need. So the lower your EFC, the higher your financial need. And they will attempt, that school will attempt to give you financial aid equal to your financial need. In some cases, they'll be able to do that. But in many cases, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to come up short. And then you'll have what's referred to as unmet need. or financial need unmet by financial aid. And if you take that unmet need and you add it to that original expected family contribution value, that's going to be a pretty good guess of what it's going to cost you for that student at that school in the next year. By the way, financial aid comes 4 ways: grants, scholarships, work study, and loans. And I always tell families we love grants and we love scholarships. Why? Free money. You don't have to pay it back. Give me more free money, give me more of that, give me more of that, give me more of that. Work study then is earned money. That's the ability to get a job with the school, usually on campus. It's a paycheck, if you will. You're an employee of the school. You take some of that money that you've earned, you're able to use that to pay for your schooling. And then finally, loans. Be aware that loans are part of financial aid award packages. Loans need to be paid back. Of course, that's borrowed money. Okay, I hope that overview was helpful before we get into some more details about financial aid. What I've given you there is a verbal explanation of the overview process of how need-based financial aid works. Here it is in writing. This document is actually on the financial aid tab on our website, and you can find it there if you want to refer back to it. Talks about EFC, talks about the financial aid award offer. I've actually put a numerical example in here about the financial aid award offer and everything associated with it. So just be aware that's out there under the financial aid tab. Let me give you really quickly just a brief word about college options. We serve 5 counties in the North State, and you can see them listed here. We have 3 service lines: academic or college prep. If you need help with filling out a college application, you need help with the essays, you may need help with the personal inquiry questions on the UC app, we're available. We have experts that can help with that. Second would be career exploration. Not sure what I want to study when I go to school. Not sure what I want to do as a career when I graduate. We've got an expert in this area. We've got some great tools that match not only what you're interested in, but also what you're good at. So we take what you're interested in, match it up with your aptitude, and we'll give you a set of careers that would be good for you based on that criteria. We'll tell you how much those careers will pay annually, and we'll tell you what kind of schooling, if any, would be required and how you can go about getting that kind of schooling to get into that career. So that's our second service line. And then third is financial aid. That's what I do. Anything financial aid, you need any assistance, any help with that, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to be able to help you with your financial aid questions or concerns. Here are my goals for this presentation today. I've already mentioned the first one. It is to take the mystery out of the financial aid process. Hopefully take a lot of the mystery out of the financial aid process for you. I won't read them all, but I will mention the second one as well. Provide an understanding of how to maximize your potential for financial aid as a family, particularly how you can maximize your potential for the free money portion of financial aid. That's the best kind. What is the FAFSA? Well, again, it's the free application for federal student aid. It is your gateway to financial aid, those 4 types of financial aid that are listed here. And it's used to determine your family's expected family contribution. And I've talked about that, how the government has put together what they believe is an objective means of measuring the strength of a family's resources and its ability to pay for college costs. When do you complete the FAFSA? Well, it becomes available every year on October 1st. You can start when you're a high school senior, and then every year that you're planning to go to college, you've got to complete it every year. So be aware of that. Where do you complete the FAFSA? Well, there's a couple different places you can do it. Studentaid.gov. If you've got a laptop or a desktop, that'll take you to a page that looks like this. And it says new to FAFSA process, start here. You don't have to do all of your FAFSA all in one sitting. You can save your work. You can come back later as a returning user and you log in here. Or if you need to go in and correct something that you made a mistake on or add schools that we talked about earlier, you can do that through that site right there. There's also an app, right? There's an app for everything these days, right? So it's called My Student Aid. You can do it on your phone and or on a tablet, and it's really quite good. So you get it at your app store, download it, and you're able to fill out your FAFSA that way. There's also the paper version of the FAFSA, which I would not recommend. I definitely recommend the electronic version. It's a lot faster, a lot more reliable, and just easier to use than the paper version. What's the process for the FAFSA? Well, starting on October 1st of 2021, the FAFSA became available for the academic year 2022-2023, next academic year. You fill it out in October of 2021, for example. And to make it even just a little bit more complicated, we're actually going to reach back a year to 2020, and that's the income information that's going to be listed on your FAFSA. You don't have a choice about that. You've got to list your 2020 income in there. So we're filling it out for an upcoming year. We're filling it out perhaps in the given year that we're in, and we're reaching back 1 year to get our income tax information. Over here, it mentioned, don't worry about your 2021 taxes. You do not need to update your FAFSA with that. In fact, when you fill out your FAFSA next year in October or November, for example, then you'll be using 2021 income information off of those taxes, but not this year. What do you need to complete the FAFSA? Well, every student and one parent needs what's called an FSA ID, a Federal Student Aid ID. And it's made up, as it's shown right here, of a username and a password. It's used to primarily to be able to sign your FAFSA, electronically, quote unquote, sign your FAFSA. So, and you don't have to wait until you fill out your FAFSA. In fact, you shouldn't wait. You should get an FSA ID as soon as you can. Have it with you and ready when you start working on your FAFSA before you start working on it. Why file a FAFSA? Well, again, it is your gateway to those 4 types of financial aid that I mentioned, coming primarily from those 3 sources that I talked about: the federal government, the state government, and the schools themselves. It really only takes about 30 minutes. Sometimes you can even do it quicker than that. It's got easier and easier over the years. As soon as you file the FAFSA, you're going to get a confirmation page. As soon as you hit submit, you're going to get a confirmation page coming back to you. And that will tell you your expected family contribution value. That'll be right there as soon as you hit submit. You're also going to know if you're eligible for the Pell Grant. That's free federal money. It'll tell you how much. It will also tell you on that confirmation page if you're eligible for federal loans. Remember, as I said, if you're a student, federal loans are the best kind of loans. And then soon thereafter, maybe 2 weeks later, you're going to be able to find out from the California Student Aid Commission if you're eligible for the Cal Grant. By the way, the Cal Grant has a deadline. You've got to file your FAFSA by March 2nd. If you're going to University of California school, you may get up to over $14,000 of Cal Grant aid, free money from the state of California per year, and you can get the Cal Grant for 4 years. If you qualify by every measure, but you file your FAFSA on March 3rd, you're not going to be able to get that Cal Grant. So keep that in mind. Don't get anywhere close to March 2nd. File your FAFSA well before that. Here's one of the tools that really has helped to make the FAFSA easier and faster to complete. It's the IRS Data Retrieval Tool, or IRS DRT. You can see here in this graphic, it says it's easy. Transfer the information with just a click of a button. You're taking it from the IRS off of your tax return, dropping it right into your FAFSA. It's fast, you do it quickly, doesn't take long at all, and it's completely accurate. It's electronic. They're going to grab your information off of your tax return, drop it into the FAFSA, completely correct, and exactly where it needs to go on your FAFSA form. Really a neat tool, really a helpful tool that the government has put together. So I encourage all families to use this IRS data retrieval tool. Every year I have some families talk to me and say, we're not going to fill out our FAFSA. We're too busy. It's too complicated. It's too confusing. We make too much money, so I know we're not going to get anything back when we fill out our FAFSA anyway. So I put together this document. There's 5 reasons here, which I believe they're compelling reasons. Hopefully you'll find them to be compelling, at least one, because I would like every family in our region to be able to file a FAFSA and be able to avail themselves of all the financial aid that's out there, particularly the free money. So here we go. The first one, regardless of income level, a FAFSA has to be filed in order to receive the free California Community College tuition. So at many of the California community colleges, not all, but many, you can get 2 years free tuition. And that's regardless of income. But you've got to file a FAFSA. I like to use the Shasta College mantra, if you will, which is you're a first-time student, you're a full-time student, and you file a FAFSA, you're eligible for the free tuition. So first time, full-time, file a FAFSA, a lot of F's in there, free tuition. But you got to file a FAFSA. And again, that's regardless of income. Secondly, filing a FAFSA allows for access to government loans. Again, as I said, student loans from the government are the best kind, but in order to get them, you can only get them if you file a FAFSA. Third, filing a FAFSA allows for the opportunity to secure need-based aid if life circumstances or financial circumstances change, and this would be referred to as a special circumstances case. You know, sometimes life throws us curveballs. We wish that didn't happen, but you're going to have to use your 2020 income when you file this FAFSA for the 2022-2023 school year. You don't have a choice. But perhaps for whatever reason, your income in 2021 is less than it was in 2020, or even in 2022, it may be less, or your expenses may be a lot higher than they were. And something has happened in your family, a job loss, an illness, whatever it could be. Again, we hope none of this happens to our families, but we know that life happens, as they say. If something like that happens, you can go back to the financial aid office at your school. You can tell them your situation. You've got a special circumstance appeal, and they have the ability to go in and change your FAFSA, perhaps lower your income on your FAFSA, which would lower your EFC, which would raise your financial need, which could make you eligible for more financial aid. They have the ability to go in and change your FAFSA, but you don't. You won't be able to go in and make those changes to the FAFSA that you filed. But they can only, of course, make those changes to your FAFSA if you've got a FAFSA on file with them. So I say this is just good insurance. In case something untoward happens in your family, you've got a FAFSA on file, you can go back and the financial aid office can make those changes. Number 4, you can qualify for the California Middle Class Scholarship, which is the offer of free money, even if the parents earned up to $201,000 of income in 2020, and they have up to $201,000 of assets. And then finally, some schools will not consider a student for merit scholarships until they've submitted a FAFSA. I've been talking all along here about need-based scholarships or need-based aid based on your financial situation. Merit scholarships are based on a talent or a skill that the student has. So they may be a good student, so they're a great academic, right? They could be a great artist or a great athlete or a great musician. And the school says, hey, we want to upgrade our music program. You're a great musician. We want you to come to our school and help upgrade our music program. And we want you so badly that we're going to give you some free money in the form of a merit scholarship that's based on your musical talent. So just be aware that more and more schools are requiring, even for merit scholarships, the need for families to file a FAFSA. So be aware of that. Hopefully, at least one of those 5 was compelling enough for you to say, okay, I'm going to file a FAFSA. I sure hope so. So when I talked about putting together a financial aid award offer by the financial aid office, I said they start with their cost of attendance. So I'm just showing you one here as an example. You can Google search the name of your school and the cost of attendance. You'll get a chart that looks something like this. Expenses down the left, different living arrangements across the top. You wouldn't be surprised to know the number is different. The cost of attendance is different depending on where you live and what kind of food you eat, what meal plan you're on, et cetera, et cetera. So I just show you this. This happens to be UC Davis. I show you this as an example. Here's a page that I put together that's a cost of attendance comparison. The first 3 types of schools I've listed here are all public schools. They're subsidized by the state of California. First is Shasta College. There are 116 community colleges in California. They have the lowest cost of attendance. Then there are 23 California State University schools, or CSUs as they're called, Chico State, Sacramento State, Humboldt State, et cetera. Their tuition is higher, their cost of attendance is higher. And there are 9 undergraduate UC schools or University of California schools, UC Davis, UCLA, UC Irvine, UC Berkeley, et cetera. Their tuition is higher, their cost of attendance is higher. Excuse me. These are all public schools. The state subsidizes, gives them money to help hold their costs down. There are also private schools all across the country, in the state of California, up and down the West Coast. In Reading, we have two. Simpson University and National University are private schools. I've listed, typically private schools have a higher cost of attendance, higher tuition because they don't get these state subsidies. And I've listed here Stanford University, and 1 year, almost $80,000 per year, which is like extreme sticker shock, right? You're saying, no way, I'm not even gonna look at private schools. Well, let me encourage you with this. Every year I'm told by families that they were considering for their son or daughter going to an in-state California public school, and maybe Chico State, for example. And they were also considering going to a private school or more than one private school, maybe a private school in California or a private school in Oregon, wherever it may be. And lo and behold, because of the amount of institutional aid, their own money that a private school was able to give to the student, it became less expensive for that student to attend that very expensive private school than it was for them to attend the California public school. So again, private schools have, some of them, large endowments. They have more of their own money to be able to give out in terms of institutional aid. You never know what you're going to see or what you're going to get from them until you file a FAFSA and you apply to that school and you get accepted by that school and you see your financial aid award offer. Okay, so what amount of money is available? So for limited and middle income families, I'm going to look at this through the grid of those three primary sources: federal, state, and schools themselves. Federal aid, Pell Grant, pays anywhere between $650 to about $6,500 per year, and you can get it for 6 years maximum. You can use your Pell Grant at any accredited school in the United States. There's also work study. The federal government subsidizes some of the work study funds for schools, colleges. And of course, the federal government is the source of federal student loans. In California, we have the Cal Grant. It pays anywhere between $1,600 and a little over $14,000, depending on what type of Cal Grant you get and what type of school you go to. And I'll show you a chart that will explain that here in a few minutes. Cal Grant's good for 4 years maximum. And by the way, you've got to use your Cal Grant at accredited California schools. You can't take your Cal Grant to Oregon or Nevada. You can't spend it out of state. And there's also the California College Promise Program. That's the 2 years free community college. We've talked about that previously. From the schools themselves, you could get scholarships based on need, your finances, or based on merit, talent, or skill of the student. And again, it varies by school. You never really know. Some schools are more generous than others. Some schools are more generous in a given year than they are in a different year. You just really never quite sure what motivates them in terms of their scholarship abilities. For higher income families, what's available? Well, again, federal aid, you wouldn't, because it's higher income, that's what we're looking at, they wouldn't be eligible for the Pell Grant, which is for is a form of need-based aid, but they may still be eligible for federal student loans. In California, again, there's the California College Promise Program. That's the 2 years free tuition. That's regardless of income at many schools, even if you've got a high income. Here's the California Middle Class Scholarship, which I mentioned before, and the amount of income and assets that a family can have. But be aware, this is only for 10 to 40% of tuition at California state schools, those 23, or at the 9 undergraduate UC schools. So you can't use a California middle class scholarship at community college or at private schools in California. And again, this would be for students whose parents make too much money to qualify for the Cal Grant. They may still be eligible for the California middle class scholarship. And then for high income families in the institution themselves, well, you're not going to get need-based aid, but you could still get merit-based aid as a student, again, talent or skill that the student has. And then down here at the bottom, the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program, or WUI, as it's known, about 16 states across the West. If you go out of California, you go out of state to go to a public school in a different state, you're going to pay 2 times, 3 times, maybe 4 times the rate that the in-state students are going to pay for that tuition. However, if you go under the WUI program, you're going to pay no more than, it's listed here, 150% of the in-state tuition, or 1.5 times the in-state tuition, which is it's a good deal. And a lot of families in the North State take advantage of that. You can go to the Western Undergraduate Exchange website, and they've got member schools listed there. So you can see if the school you might be interested in out of state participates in the WUI program. Okay, I'm going to talk about the Cal Grant in some detail now, because it is so important and it's such a generous award of free money for our students. This document is a Cal Grant income and asset ceiling page. It's a standalone document on our financial aid tab on our website. First of all, let me say that Cal Grant comes three different ways: Cal Grant A, Cal Grant B, and Cal Grant C. Cal Grant A and B are for colleges and universities. Cal Grant C is for tech schools or trade schools. Cal Grant A, 3.0 GPA in high school or higher. Cal Grant B, 2.0 GPA in high school or higher, but less than a 3.0. Cal Grant C has no GPA attached to it. And then the criteria for the Cal Grant is based on parents' income and also family size in addition to the GPA. So let's just use an example here. Family of 4. Let's say Cal Grant A students, so they're over a 3.0 high school GPA. The parents could make in 2020 up to $116,800 and still qualify for a Cal Grant. But let's say the student was over 2.0 but less than 3.0, then they'd only be eligible for Cal Grant B, and that would limit the family's income to $61,400. So be aware of this table of the income ceiling. Then there's also an asset ceiling, and parents could have up to $90,400 of assets and still qualify for the Cal Grant. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes exactly what assets get reported on the FAFSA and what does not get reported, but I'll give you very quickly a spoiler alert. Your primary home, the home equity in your primary home does not get reported as an asset, and any retirement accounts. You have money in any retirement accounts, they do not get reported on the FAFSA. All right, there's 4 ways to get to Cal Grant. By far, the easiest way to get it, the best way to get it is coming out of high school. It's called the high school entitlement. There's a 2-year window. The year a student is a senior and then 1 year later. And that's the best way to get it. If you qualify with GPA and with income and assets and you file by March 2nd, you're going to get to Cal Grant, and the state's not going to run out of money. You're entitled to it. If you don't get to Cal Grant coming out of high school for some reason, there are 3 other ways to get it. 2 of them have involvement with the community college. And then the last one is competitive awards, but there are so few of those that it's a very low chance of getting a competitive award. If you ever have interest in understanding how you get a Cal Grant coming through the community college, again, if you get it coming out of high school, you don't have to worry about it. But if you don't get it coming out of high school and you're interested in knowing about the community college entitlements, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Here's a chart that's also on our financial aid tab on our website. This is what the Cal Grant pays out. What's the award amount? So again, we've got 3 different Cal Grants, right? A, B, C. There's the GPA requirement and the degree requirement. C is again for tech schools and trade schools. And then it's dependent on the type of Cal Grant you get and what type of school you go to. So this is California Community College, California State University, University of California, private nonprofit like Stanford, USC, Simpson, etc., or private for-profit. So depending on which Cal Grant you have, let's say you have Cal A, let's say you're going to UC Davis, you're going to get $12,570 a year to go to UC Davis. Let's say you're going to Chico State, you're going to get $57.42. That's full tuition at any one of the 23 Cal States is $57.42, and $12,570 is full tuition at any one of the 9 undergraduate UC schools. Not tuition and fees, but tuition. So the Cal Grant was set up to pay full tuition at the Cal State schools or at the UC schools. And then you can see that private schools have a different amount of money depending on whether they're nonprofit or for-profit. Use this chart. I made it for myself because it was very confusing. Hopefully this is helpful to you as you consider your school choices and your Cal Grant award options. All right. I'm going to talk briefly about those 5 elements of the EFC calculation because you're going to be asked these questions on the FAFSA. We'll start with income. First of all, students' income is going to be required, but a student can make a little over $7,000 in 2020, and it has zero impact on the expected family contribution value. Parents' income is, in most cases, also going to be required. And there's an interesting rule for parents if they're separated or divorced and not living together, which parent's income gets listed on the FAFSA. And parents often get this wrong because they think it has something to do with who claims the student on their taxes, or who makes the most money, or who makes the least money, etc. Actually, the rule is by the federal government, whoever the student lived with the most in the 12 months prior to filling out the FAFSA, that's whose income gets listed on the FAFSA. So it's the government rule, not my rule. So use it strategically if you can. If you got a parent that's got a low income and another that's got a higher income, well, it would be advantageous to you from a financial aid standpoint to be able to list the lower incomes, the income parents' income on the FAFSA. So if there's any way that that student can live one more day, at least one more day in the prior 12 months with that lower income parent than the higher income parent, then the lower income parent's income can be listed on the FAFSA. I understand that's not always possible to be able to move back and forth between parents, but if it were, be aware of this rule that FAFSA has and use it to your advantage. Assets. Again, parents, and again, the same rule applies that we just talked about. Parent assets, about 5 or 6% of the value of parents' assets get added on to the EFC, or could be added on, whereas 20% of the value of student assets could be added on to the EFC. So we say it's often best to keep assets out of the name of the students if it's possible, if you can do it legally and legitimately. That's all that I'm talking about here, doing it legally and legitimately. And one way to do that is if a student has some savings, you may want to put that into an educational savings plan, or a 529 plan, as they're known. Because those 529 plans, the value of those, whether they're in the name of the student or in the name of the parent, they get reported on the FAFSA by rule of FAFSA as an asset of the parent, which is a good thing, right? Because it has a lesser impact on the EFC calculation. So that's one way to turn student assets into parent assets if you'd like to do something like that. By the way, as a reminder, when you fill out your FAFSA, your income is from 2020. It's behind us. Your tax return is most likely already done. There's nothing you can do about it. However, your assets are calculated as of the day you file your FAFSA. So if you need to do something with your assets to move them so you have less reportable assets on the FAFSA, again, doing this legally and legitimately, I want to emphasize that, legally and legitimately, moving assets, do it before you file your FAFSA, then file the FAFSA so that you get that order correct, because assets are calculated as of the day that you file your FAFSA. What assets get reported on the FAFSA and what do not get reported? Oftentimes families stumble over this, so I want to try and be as clear as I can on this. I want to start with what assets do not get reported. So as I said before, your home equity in your primary home does not get reported. Any retirement accounts that you have, 401k, 403b, Roth IRA, SEP, etc. Life insurance products, annuities do not get reported. If you have a business, you own a business, ranch, or a farm, and your family owns more than 50% of that business, ranch, or farm, and you have less than 100 employees, you do not need to report any assets of that business, ranch, or farm. And then finally down here, personal belongings do not, the value of those do not get reported. So cars, trucks, boats, furniture, clothing, jewelry, tools, firearms, none of the values of those products get reported, your personal belongings. So what does get reported? Right down here, cash, savings, checking, cash in your pocket, cash under your mattress, savings account, checking account. Investment real estate, if your parents own property, that's not your primary home. Fair market value of that property minus what you owe would be the asset to be reported. If they own rental property, fair market value minus what they owe would be the asset value to be reported. Stocks, bonds, trusts, or other investments that are not in retirement accounts, they get reported on the FAFSA. And then again, finally, college savings plans, or those 529 plans, But again, remember to report them as an asset of the parent, even if they're in the name of the student. So whether in the name of the student or the parent, they get reported as an asset of the parent. Okay, also you're going to be asked the number in the household. So you count the student, count the parents, any other children that are there living with the parents, and any other persons living with the family, if the parents are supporting that person more than 50% of their living expenses. So let's say grandma's living in the home and the parents are providing more than 50% of grandma's living expenses, count grandma in the number in the household. The higher the number in the household, the lower the EFC, the higher the financial need, the higher the potential for financial aid. Number in the household in college, count the student, of course, that's filling out the FAFSA, and any other siblings that are also going to be in school in that academic year. And then finally, the other element of the EFC calculation is the age of the oldest parent. The older the age of the parent, the less impact parents' assets have on the EFC. But there's nothing you can do about that, right? It is what it is. Your age is your age. It has limited, it's not much impact on the calculation, but it does have a little bit of an impact on the calculation. All right, we're coming down the stretch here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I started by talking about financial aid award offers. I want to wrap up with them as well. So again, for every school that you apply to and you get accepted to, and you've listed that school in the FAFSA, you will get a financial aid award offer. Just an example I'm showing, they start with their cost of attendance. I'm using 31,000 in my example. I'm saying that in my example, your expected family contribution value is 5,000. That means your financial need as a student is $26,000. That financial aid office will attempt to give you financial aid, scholarships, grants, work study, or loans equal to $26,000. And they may or may not be able to do that. Again, I've said it before, but it's worth repeating. Schools offer varying amounts of financial aid. Some are more generous than others. Applying to multiple schools gives you more financial aid offers to consider. Didn't get enough financial aid, consider these options. I've got a long list here, but I want to talk just about the first one, which is negotiate, or just simply go back to that college or university financial aid office and let them know that you need more financial aid, preferably in the form of free money. If you're not able to attend as a student because the financial situation that you're in, that school would like to know that before you just walked away. They'd like to be given another chance to potentially give you more financial aid. And I've seen families go back and do this, and schools said, yes, here's a little bit more financial aid, or they'll say no, but that's the worst thing they can say. They're not going to say, and they can't say no, and because you asked, you've angered me, and therefore I'm taking $5,000 away from my original financial aid award offer. They cannot do that. They will not do that. So all I say to parents is be kind, be polite, thank them for their original financial aid award offer, and just let them know that the situation that you're in, and have a conversation with them and see what they might be able to do for you. In addition to getting more financial aid, which is a good thing, another way to help you financially in college is to reduce your costs. So here's a list of those. Just going to talk about the first two briefly. One is graduate on time. You know, it's expensive to go to college. The longer you go, the more you're going to pay. So get in and get out, stay on track, stay on course. If you're going to a 4-year school, 4 years or less to graduate. Career planning. If you go to college or university and you change majors, and I understand sometimes that's necessary, but if you change majors, you're probably going to lose credits. You're probably going to have to take more courses. You're probably going to have to go longer. It's going to cost you more money. So again, if we can help before you go to college or soon after you get there, if we can help at college options in the career exploration or career planning process, let us know. We'd be more than happy to be able to help you. What about scholarships? Well, your high school counselors, they've seen students like you walk up and down your hallways year after year. They know where local community members give scholarships. They can help you with that. Many schools have a scholarship link on their website. The McConnell Foundation or the Ford Family Foundation, they have a McConnell Scholars Program and a Ford Scholars Program. If you're in Siskiyou County as a student, you can apply to both. Otherwise, only a McConnell would apply. These are very, very, very generous offers of free financial aid for students in our region. Check them out on their websites. Community Foundation of the North State has a scholarship database. Reach Higher Shasta has a scholarship database, and not all of those scholarships are Shasta County exclusive. Your local Chamber of Commerce, Rotary Club, or other civic groups may have scholarships. Check them out. Here's an interesting resource that I came across. A congresswoman in Southern California has her staff put together a student resource guide every year. It's very comprehensive. It's really a great tool. I would recommend it to you. Take a look at it, search out that website, and you'll see it there. It's prominently displayed. And then finally, the financial aid office at your school. I tell parents all the time, the people that work in the financial aid office at your school should be your best friends. And why do I say that? Because all day, every day, whatever you're doing, you know what they're doing? Helping people find money to go to college. What are you looking for? Money to go to college. The folks in the financial aid office know all the federal rules, they know all the state rules, they know all the institution rules, and they know where the school has scholarships that you or I might have no idea that they have. So don't be afraid of them. They owe you good answers. Be willing to reach out to them and talk with them and see what they have to offer for you. I talked earlier about special circumstances and applying professional judgment. Again, here's some examples of things that might occur in our families. We hope that they don't. But if they do, if you face some kind of a hardship or there's new information brought to bear about your income or about your expenses, again, you can go back to that financial aid office. You can talk to them. They have the ability to change your FAFSA information. Here's a page, actually it's 2 pages that I've listed on our financial aid tab on our website. It's all about loans. First page is about student loans, subsidized loans from the government for students. Government pays the interest while you're in school. They're the best. They are limited, however, based on your class standing right there. And beyond that, you can get $2,000 more per year of unsubsidized loans. That means that as soon as you take this money, this loan from the government, interest begins to accrue at the day that you take it. But again, these are the best kind of loans. Students, you will not do better than these federal direct loans in terms of interest rate and loan fees. Second page is about parents' loans. The federal government does offer federal loans to parents. They're called Parent Plus loans. Interest rate quite a bit higher, loan fees quite a bit higher. And parents, you may or may not be able to do better in the private student loan market. So whereas I guarantee you that student loans are best from the federal government, parent loans maybe, but maybe not be best from the federal government. You can check out down here, private student loan market. I give you the website simpletuition.com. I kind of refer to it as the Amazon shopping page for parent loans. So be aware of that. Spend your education dollar wisely. You may spend a lot of money to go to college or university. You should be aware of some of the metrics that are used to measure these schools. I'm just giving you 2 here. Retention rate, what percentage of students started as freshmen, return as sophomores? If that number is low, they're not taking care of their students very well. By the way, these metrics you can find at this website right down here. And then graduation rate, of course, what percentage of students started as freshmen, graduated in 4 years or 6 years, or now I've even seen some reports of 8-year graduation rates. That is outrageous. That is ridiculous. You should be on the 4-year graduation track if you're going to a 4-year school. Don't stretch it out. The longer you go, the more you pay. You will notice that there are some very low 4-year graduation rates on this page of some very reputable, very good schools. Why is that? Well, probably students, be aware, it's probably because the students could not get all the classes they needed to stay on track, to stay on course, to graduate in 4 years. So 1, be aware of that, students. Advocate for yourself. Be rather demanding that you need these classes in this order to be able to get through in 4 years. Secondly, if for some reason you can't get those classes, look for other alternatives, like taking that course at a community college, taking that course online. Whatever you need to do to stay on track to graduate in 4 years, I'd recommend it, again, because it's very costly to have to keep on going back to college year after year. All right, this is our college options website, collegeoptions.org. It's our landing page. This happens to be a picture of our office space. I'm in that space this evening as I prepare this video. Click on the financial aid tab right up here, financial aid tab right down here. Will take you to the financial aid page, which I have loaded with a ton of information. This is just a small snippet of the information that's on that page, but I want you to know that every one of these topics, and there are many topics on the financial aid website, on the tab, every topic has a drop-down menu. So there are, you click on it, you get a drop-down menu of other information. I want to point out this one, financial aid PowerPoint presentation. Here is a copy of this YouTube video. Here is a copy of the presentation that I'm showing right now. And here are the documents that I pointed out that I said were so important that they had their own link on our financial aid tab on our website, like the Cal Grant award amounts, like the Cal Grant income and asset ceilings, etc. This is also a document that we have on our financial aid tab, senior year checklist, month by month. Stay on track, stay on course, don't miss anything, don't miss any deadlines, 2 pages under our financial aid tab. This is my disclaimer, if you will. I am not a certified financial planner. I am not an accountant. And I've been talking to you about financial aid. Before you go do something crazy as a family to try and reduce your expected family contribution score or calculation, you may want to talk to your a certified financial planner or to your accountant before you do something that might not be the best interest of your family from a financial standpoint. All right, some considerations, and then we're done. We're wrapping up. Cal Grant's good for 4 years, including at the community college. If you go to community college and you're going to be there more than 2 years and you're planning to go to a 4-year school and you want to have a Cal Grant there because it's worth more there, you may, and you're going to stay more than 2 years at the community college, you may want to put it on hold. You can do that at the community college. So use your Cal Grant wisely. Cal Grant deadline, March 2nd. And then I almost want to whisper this, and I've actually put it in smaller font, except if you're going to a California community college, then the Cal Grant deadline is September 2nd. But again, why even risk it? Just file before March 2nd. Don't even come close to that date. Several other things on this page too. Let me just mention one more. That's verification. It's a financial aid process that will you'll perhaps be called upon to participate in. About 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 families get called for verification by the federal government. It's administered by the financial aid office of your school. They're going to come to you and ask you to prove that what the information you put on your FAFSA is true. Well, how do you do that? Well, rule number 1, only put true information on your FAFSA. That will be very helpful to you. And then there's nothing to fear. Don't be fearful. Don't be afraid of this process. It is cumbersome. It takes some time. You're going to fill out some forms probably provided by the school themselves, but there's nothing to be concerned about. Just be aware it's just a standard process, and don't be afraid of it to be able to participate in it. This is my page of gratitude, if you will, to the McConnell Foundation out of Reading, the Ford Family Foundation out of Roseburg, Oregon. They provided grant funding to College Options, which allows us to do what we do at College Options at no charge. Our services are no charge to any of the families in our 5-county North State region, and we're so grateful for that. Finally, thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for hanging in there to the end. Again, here's my contact information, bwilliams@collegeoptions.org. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. My phone number is also here, 530-768-5103. Let's stop sharing my screen now. And let me just say that I hope that this information was helpful to you. I hope that I was able to take some of the mystery out of the financial aid process for you. And also let me say, if there's ever anything I can do to help you, put you in contact with some of my College Options colleagues for some help that you may need, or anything in financial aid, whatever it may be. If you need help, want help filling out the FAFSA, I'm more than happy to do that. More than happy to take your questions, help you with anything that I can. It would be my honor, my privilege to be able to help you. So don't be afraid to reach out. Be happy to help. All right, take care. Thanks, everybody.